What's up, guys? Welcome back to Boost Brothers Garage. Today we are pulling the engine on the Widebody 944. Stay tuned. As you can tell, I've already begun this process. I'm bleeding, I'm sweaty, I'm dirty. It's not a lot of fun. Actually, I lied. It is actually quite a bit of fun because on this one I don't have to worry about wiring harness, hoses, any of that because none of it's getting reused. So I get to use the Sawzall and side cuts and just hack away. So it's gonna save us a lot of time and energy. Before I dive too deep into this process, there's two things I want to say. Number one, we are on the hunt for someone with a 986 Boxster in the Cincinnati area or who is willing to drive to Cincinnati. Soul Exhaust has a new exhaust kit for the 986 and they want us to be their guinea pig and we need a car. So if you are interested, comment below or shoot us an email and yeah, we can talk and hopefully we can figure something out. Number two, if you're jonesing for Cayman content, I'm gonna put a link up here. Make sure and go check our buddy out, D-Ray's Garage. He's got a Boxster Spider that he's turning into a pretty awesome autocross car. He's done a lot of bolt-ons and he's a whiz with detailing and a lot of the stuff that we're not very good at. So anyway, check his channel out and yeah, that'll give you a fix for the Cayman stuff while we're working on this. I've been working for, I don't know, 45 minutes or so. Thus far, I've got everything that's connected to the front of the engine off. So I disconnected the power steering reservoir, the coil wire, all the coolant lines. I got rid of the mass air meter, the air box, all the brackets and stuff that go to that. I disconnected the cruise control, which came over the top of the engine. I took my Sawzall to the entire engine harness and I chopped it off, as well as some of the stuff in the back. I think that side of the motor, pretty well everything is disconnected. The radiator's out, the fans are out, so we have room there. On this side of the engine, I think that I'm gonna have to take the power steering pump off because as I look down, it is kind of to the left of the frame rail. So I think when I pull the engine up out, which I'm doing instead of going out the bottom, which a lot of people do on 944s, it would hit the frame rail. So I'm gonna pull the power steering pump off and then I've got to get it disconnected from the transmission. And I've got to work on the motor mounts and I got to make sure there's no other weird ancillary stuff, ground cables, any of that. I'll have to disconnect the starter and then we can yank it. So probably going to be a lot of time lapse. I'll chime in every once in a while when I take a beer break. Let's go. As promised, it's time for a beer break and a glove break. I've been under the car for the past half hour, 45 minutes. I would have time lapsed, but all you would have seen is my belly hanging out, and not even my wife wants to see that. So I tried to get the header to the exhaust nuts off. Those stripped, so I had to cut that with a Sawzall. I got the torque tube to the bell housing taken apart. You technically could take the bell housing off the back of the engine, but it's harder to get to those bolts. There's a cross pin that goes through like the clutch fork and the throw bearing that keeps everything captive, keeps the bell housing attached to the engine, so it's easier to just undo it from the torque tube. Got the starter off, so under the car everything's done except for the power steering pump. I'm gonna knock that out real quick. And then I think really all that's left is the engine mounts, which are gonna suck. Luckily Zach's here with me, so he's gonna be able to give me a hand. For whatever reason, they use bolts and nuts, so we're gonna have to have someone at the top trying to zip the bolt out while someone's down below holding the nut. So I'll get the power steering pump done real quick and then we'll hop back up top and we'll start time lapsing, show you exactly what we're doing, work on those engine mounts, and we should be able to rip it out. Porsche's infinite wisdom, they put the nut for the shaft of the motor mount directly over the control arm. So I now get to take the control arms off just to get those last two nuts to loosen the motor mounts so that I can pull it. It's always something. That's now done, and to reward me with getting the passenger side off, the car made me punch myself directly in the eyeball, which really hurt. Also, I noticed that there is one last thing holding us up, and that is I don't have the AC lines disconnected. So I'm going to call a professional to come in and evacuate the lines.
Just like on the Cayman.
Just like we did on the Cayman. And
it's very important that you call a professional.
Yeah, otherwise the EPA will be all over your ass. So I'm gonna do that. I'll see you guys tomorrow after that's done. All right, it's the next day. We had the pros come out and evacuate our system, and now it's time to pull the engine. And hopefully everything's disconnected. We're gonna find out right now.
Nope.
The studs from the motor mounts go down into the cross member, so we can't pull it forward until those are free, and we can't pull the engine high enough to free those because it's in the torque tube. So I'm gonna drop the cross member. When in doubt, get a bigger hammer. Had to go about it a little differently. There are some bolts on top of the motor mounts, and we took those off, and looks like the cross member's loose, and now I'm just hoping for the best. Hey, that's promising. And that's it. I wouldn't say that it was the easiest thing in the world, but it's not the worst. These dowel pins right here stick into the torque tube, and then the torque tube has a spline shaft that comes in here, and that spline shaft is like this long where it goes in. That's what keeps the engine from coming up unless you bring it far enough forward. But once we did that and we were able to get the cross member to loosen up, it came out relatively easy. If anyone needs an NA 944 engine, let me know. That's that, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.